you guys a lot for joining me today. I'm really excited to have y'all here. We've got a group of what I would say are flex experts in the space of flex work and co-working and what all of that means. We're going to kind of dive into that a little bit today. So I'm really excited to have y'all here, especially people that I consider to be people who have taught me what the heck is going on in this industry. So I'm excited to have you guys share a little bit more about your expertise, but maybe we just go around the horn really quickly. If you want to say who you are, who you work with, and then maybe just kind of one special thing that people maybe don't know either about you personally or your company.
Awesome. I guess I'll start. Hey everyone, I'm Kayla Gottschalk. It's nice to be here. Thanks for the invite. I work at a company called Switchyards based in Atlanta, Georgia, and I am overseeing their launches. Switchyards is, if you don't know, is we're creating a new vertical within the area of flexible work or co-working, and we're calling them neighborhood work clubs.
Thanks for having me. It's Megan Slavin with 25 North Coworking. I am one of the co-owners of the company, and what we do at 25 North is we focus on suburban or second-tier markets. We want to have workspace close to where you live. And we really focus on the people within the space, our staff and our members specifically. So very flexible, different types of a product there, and based on where someone lives specifically. So,
love that. Thank you. Go ahead, Jamie.
I'm Jamie Russo. I am the CEO of Everything Coworking, and we help operators launch and grow their coworking spaces profitably. I would say that might be kind of our differentiator is you can fix a lot of things after you've opened, like marketing, but it's very difficult to fix your business model. And I opened my first coworking location in 2012. Made the whole thing up, guessed the whole time, made a lot of mistakes, and became really passionate about helping other independent operators. And today, landlords who have extra space really understand the business model and design a business that serves their goals, whatever their unique goals are. So that's what we do. And we do that through a number of different avenues, from sort of co-working in a box solutions to the co-working startup school. And we also run a training and development platform for community managers of co-working spaces called Community Manager University.
Awesome. Thanks, Jamie. Gio, will you wrap us up?
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. So ultimately, I wear multiple hats. And my primary core business is I am a broker that is focused strictly on this space. So I've had the pleasure of helping open up 105 co-working spaces across the country. Half of those were with Regis. And so that's where I learned the business model from the largest co-working operator in the world that's been around for 30 years. But essentially my goal is, to Jamie's point, is to help operators basically overcome the first three things that basically kill this industry from the very beginning, which is the location, the real estate deal structure, and then the layout, the efficiency of the space. So that's my core business. In addition to that, I'm honored to be the executive director of the Global Workspace Association. Jamie was my predecessor and was able to kind of prepare that and stabilize it. And as we continue growing, there's more faces, more operators, more vendors. And so it's like, how do we continue building that ecosystem to go out and educate? And part of that too is she was very humble, but she's got 2 podcasts, right? So she's got her Everything Coworking podcast, in which she's over 300 episodes now.
We're almost to 4.
Yeah. That's crazy. And then we have our own called Flex Uncensored, hence the hat. And we're about to hit 3 years. And so really every Tuesday we come out with an episode that has a different guest on there. We do maybe every 6 months we'll do one, just the two of us. But for the most part, it's bringing in industry experts. And really, it's the beauty of it is twofold, right? We're trying to understand their business model, their business mind, but also who we become is, it's basically the foundation is our background, right? Our childhood and things that helped mold us. And so that we jump into some of that stuff, people's family backgrounds and what makes them passionate and everything around that. So it's been crazy that it's almost been 3 years.
Right, which means almost 100, we must be around 150. Yeah.
That's
So
incredible.
it's part co-working, part therapy is what you're saying.
For everybody involved.
Exactly.
Well, that's actually a perfect segue, kind of thinking about breaking down the podcast questions and not being so podcasty, if you could use that word, and really getting to the heart of who your guests are and asking them questions about who they are as people and not just the work that they do. When co-working kind of began, the whole heart, at least to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is this idea of getting to the heart of work and what people do. They're showing up to these places as members, not just an employee who has a place that they have to go, but a place that they choose to go. I think that's one huge differentiator in co-working and flex work, is that you have a choice of a lot of places to work and you're choosing a place that feels like you. But do you think there's something in flex work or co-working where we have missed an opportunity to be human-centered? Is there something that maybe we're currently getting wrong or not doing well enough to cater to the human that shows up? Or is that something that you think Flex is doing really well? Love to hear your take on that.
So I think that multiple different companies can have different focuses here. I think it depends on market. I think it depends on what your brand and your culture or what your ultimate goal is. Our goal at 25 North is not only to create these communities and culture-centric spaces for members, it's also to produce a productive workspace for them. At the end of the day, our clients or our members are coming to us to have a meeting, get an office, or get a desk. That is the only reason why they walk in our door, and they come to us because we are close to where they live, we are priced correctly, and the design fits for what they're trying to find. Now, they stay for 5, 6, 7, 10 plus years because of the community that they create, but that's not what immediately draws them to our spaces. So with 25 North, that is not our ultimate focus. Now, one of our core values as a company is people first. So when they walk into our building, they're our utmost priority. But we're not a social club as well. And I think there's different brands out there that can do that very, very well. And I think it depends on what your focus is and what your product is in that area.
I love that, the acknowledging that people are coming because of location. They have a task they have to get done. Like, it's a need first. It's just it's a straight need, and then they stay. I love the way you worded that. I think that's really powerful.
I'll jump in if you don't mind. I think it's interesting because if you're in the industry, you understand the range of problems that we can solve with co-working. Like, I work from home a lot, and I often feel like lonely, or I don't have the same mojo or whatever, but I know that there's a solution out there that I could be choosing if I had time to commute that day or whatever, which is co-working. But a lot of people don't know that. Although I'd be curious to hear from Kayla if she feels like that's part of their, how they attract people. To Megan's point, it's really about solving the problem of, I need to be more productive, I need to have an office for a certain reason. It's more like functional than community driven. But the culture in co-working is really absolutely about the people. Although I do think that's specific to the brand and how that plays out for them. I think one really interesting thing that our industry struggles with is we often call the front desk role a community manager. And that is part of the people first sort of culture. But that term is really challenging because then behind the scenes, you're hiring somebody who's supposed to be very extroverted and interpersonal and get to know all the members and know their dogs' names and ask them, how they're doing and compliment their outfit. But they also have to onboard the members and offboard the members and make the coffee and fix the printer. And, it's a very operational lift to run a co-working space, which is why Gio and I both work with a lot of landlords. Megan, that's 25 North is in the business of running locations for landlords. Landlords might want to offer flexibility, but the operational aspect and the hospitality aspect is very demanding.
Something that I think is ironic too, our members who are most focused on the human side are actually our enterprise members, which I don't think, if you would stop and think and say which company is most focused on employee happiness or the human connection, I don't think your mind directly goes to Honeywell, right?
Yeah,
but
no, I'm surprised to hear you say that, honestly.
but it's so crucial. So after COVID, they had such a problem getting people back into their offices, their large headquarters, and they're still not. They're all empty, right? Most are empty. So what they did is their real estate teams and their HR teams and whoever came into our spaces, and they said, what package can we create for 100 employees? Probably only 30 are going to show up a day. What package can we create that's going to be a benefit to our team, that's going to want them to come? Can you do a weekly happy hour for them? Can you do specialty snacks for them 3 days a week? And can they be a part of this community and this vibe? We're going to convince them to come back to work. So that is actually a huge pivot for our business. And we have since been designing around that.
So, I mean, I'll approach this from a real estate standpoint, right? And so to Megan's point, I'm not surprised because, I mean, so there was a time when real estate was chosen around where does the CEO live, right? And everything around that. And then there was a time where, there was the IT team was pulled in and, okay, what does it have? What's the bandwidth coming in and what's the fiber and all that stuff? And then HR got pulled in because then it was like, how do you retain talent? The two most expensive line items for any company is their real estate and their people. And so talent in a post-COVID world is now dictating how they want to work. And the examples I give is people ask me, well, do you think it's going to return to office is going to come back? Or how is the flexibility of work going to stay the same? And the answer is when we stop plugging in a computer into the wall to get data, did we ever go, oh, wait, we're gonna go back because we want to plug it in? We didn't need to, right? When we started carrying around smartphones and no longer plugging into a wall, people aren't going, oh, well, I need a house phone now. And this is the same thing as now the workforce has proven that they can work remotely, right? There's still roles that are still going to have to go into the office. But for the most part, our flexibility in how we work has allowed for us to basically work in a different fashion. And so it's been proven to companies that people can be efficient and productive. And so ultimately they're having to really run through the idea of what do our people want? Where do they want to work from? What does that look like? And so we've talked about a 15-minute city, right? Where people want to be 15 to 20 minutes from home because they want to be able to drop their kids off and go to their gym and go to lunch with their kids or, not fight the traffic. So that's one. The other side is how much time is wasted trying to get from the suburbs into the core of a city, right? And so the efficiency behind all those things has allowed for what used to be a hub and spoke model where the corporate being in the center of the city and then the spokes being in the suburbs now has kind of been inverted where you're now seeing executives and directors that want to be in the burbs. And then there is a city center where they go for culture and, meetings and all those things, but it's a lot less frequent than it was before. And so back to your point is, what our job is, we're a hospitality industry, right? That's ultimately what we are, is we're driving hospitality. We're driving, the ability for people to have convenient options for how and where they work from.
We call it workspace as a service.
I love that.
I think it's really interesting hearing kind of from a business side because y'all are B2B mostly, but Switchyards were B2C. So Switchyards was created with really none of the formal co-working or diving into different flexibility models of the Coca-Colas or the Honeywells, but we basically created Switchyards for the people from the founding team of just what's a really cool place that bridges boutique hotel lobbies, coffee shops, like some of the coolest places that we would want to work. And so we really focused on building out Switchyards for us. Like, would we actually want to work there versus getting too technical about working with those businesses of, do you guys have like a hybrid structured model or non-hybrid structured model? Do you have to come in a couple days a week, or what kind of offerings? What I love about Switchyards is our method is so simple. It's just creating these really great places to work to get heads down focused work, or if you want to come in to be around people and get kind of like that coffee shop environment. I mean, that's kind of it. It's just like a place there tucked away in neighborhoods where anybody can go to, consumer focused. Like we would actually want to work there, and it seems to be adaptable to other people wanting to come there.
I think you're spot on. It's different, but it's working. And I'd love to hear how Switchyards considers kind of that human aspect, because like you mentioned, Jamie, I have learned kind of over the past couple of years how important that community manager role is. In fact, I would love to see more and more companies change the word from receptionist to concierge or maitre d' or something that really falls in line with that hospitality mindset. And that's not something Switchyards has, but also you have a culture. It doesn't feel cold and uninviting. So is there something you can share with kind of how you have that human people vibe without a human sitting there?
It's hard to explain it, but I mean, anytime you walk into a Switchyards, it's not necessarily black and white of what we're designing the space for. We have two different types of areas: heads down focus work, and then a really energized cafe portion where you can kind of get the energy, loud music playing. You can hear people chatting, just depending on what type of work you're planning to do. But I think the biggest thing is the soulness, and just bridging again all of these different type of aspects, furnishings that we enjoy, the architecture of the space that we enjoy. We're building a bunch of these neighborhood work clubs sort of internally for ourselves. And I think that's sometimes lost when we get too technical of, are you building on a space for, the Coca-Cola? Are you building on a space for a startup? We're just building spaces for, ourselves.
It makes total sense because all the designers of the world, right? They set up a specific lounge area and it's gorgeous and it sits there empty, right, for months, and then they don't understand why maybe it was empty. So building a space that's functionally that you and your team would use seems obvious, but I think a lot of people don't operate that way. So that's a really good way to think about it.
So I think even stepping back from that, I think what's very important for people to understand is not one product fits all, right? And so that's where we've got debates within our industry where it's like people want to use the word co-working. And well, to me, co-working is one product within the flexible workspace realm, right? And we're having that conversation here. I mean, their two products are very different. Ultimately, the goal is still to be servant leaders and to drive hospitality and to drive convenience. But at the end of the day, we use the word we use Bonvoy all the time, right? So Marriott basically is now over 30 brands. And so depending on what your need is, you decide what brand you're going to stay at. It's not necessarily price oriented. It's amenity oriented. It's hospitality, location driven. And so that's a big part to understand is she used the word consumer, right? Switchyard is consumer driven to an individual, to a household, as opposed to that's a portion of what a traditional executive suite or co-working space is doing. The space as a service side is meant to service small to medium-sized businesses, and more we're seeing more enterprise use. And so I think that's part of understanding that. In the example we were talking last night, and I gave the example of there's people that are okay staying at a hostel with 6 bunk beds in it with 5 people they don't know. But then there's people that are going to stay at the Ritz-Carlton and pay a premium for that service and everything in between. And so understanding that there is multiple ways to get to a point, and it's like, what are you trying to achieve? And so those are some of the conversations that so many of these directors of real estate, that these executives at these enterprise companies don't understand, is they're coming to us and they're going, well, how are you helping our customer, which is their employees, right? How do we retain one of our 2 most expensive line items? And part of the problem is most of them don't even understand it. We're like, you need to tell us, how do your people work? Where are they working? Do you have a sales force that is out traveling? Do you have a team that needs to be together? And so we're finding that more and more of it is tied to business lines within a company, right? So the IT team is very collaborative and they can work in a room together. You put a bunch of salespeople in a room together trying to make cold calls and warm calls and it doesn't work. And so it's really understanding, number one, that there's different product types. And number two is how and what are you trying to achieve? And even within the co-working sector, there's people that are team driven, right? So more larger spaces that have the team dynamic. There's some that are going, we're just trying to service, individual entrepreneurs. And then we're starting to even see the differentiation there, right? There's groups out there that are focused strictly on therapists, right? And so their spaces are hard walled, hard door, sound proof for privacy purposes. And so it's really understanding, what are we trying to achieve and how are we ultimately getting there?
If I were to put my former corporate hat on, do you think the system's broken if you have to go through the corporate real estate person and figuring out, like playing telephone basically, of like, how does your team work versus going directly to, that employee of like, what do you want? Or like, how do you work versus, I don't know, being so corporate and political?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think we're making the shift from realizing that people matter, right? And unfortunately, this is mainly directed at the U.S., right? The rest of the world is very different, and they're further ahead than we are. And we can start with, if you just look at people's PTO package, right? There's parts of the world where you can take off as much time as you want, and that makes people want to be like, I want to serve my team. I don't want to leave my plate of work for someone else to do, and you don't have to babysit them. Here we're like, oh, you get 2 weeks of work or 2 weeks of time off, and how do you service that? And so what we're having to become is more people-centric, right? And we had this discussion last night, right? Is, what we get to do, and it's all of us, right? Is we get to understand people's core, right? What's at the heart of who they want, what they want. How do we make them better leaders within the company? How do we make them better servants within the company? How are they serving each other? And so that's the big part is, yes, the system's broken, but it's because our psychology is broken. Is for the longest time, it was like you go wherever the CEO wants to be. It's not going, well, what's most convenient for our workforce? What is not only for them physically, but emotionally, spiritually.
A way to bridge that gap too, because it's a huge issue for us, right? When we have these enterprise and it's head of HR, head of real estate, they're making all these decisions based on the people. They're not the two that are going to be working there, but they're making these decisions based on their employees. And so how do you bridge that gap? So we do free week, free month, bring your team in, work in different environments. It's a totally different sales process for us, but it took the enterprise client a while to figure that out because that's what we were trying to sell to the one guy who was making decisions for all the 20-year-olds on the team, which did not work, right? So exactly. So they have gotten smarter as the years have gone by past COVID, and because clearly they had to learn that it wasn't working as well.
I think one thing that is drastically misunderstood when you say the word co-working is that, to your point, Gio, I think a lot of people out there think that flex and co-working might be the same thing, that co-working is what it means to not go into a corporate office, that co-working is almost like the Kleenex of tissues. It's just like, oh, that's a co-working space. And it's easily tossed around as if that's the only model. And most people, I would assume, when they say co-working and they're picturing that model, they're probably picturing the traditional model that started the industry. We're thinking Regus, we're thinking WeWork, we're thinking Industrious, we're thinking glass fronts, a lot of long halls with a lot of glass front offices. We're thinking, one main reception. You've got a couple conference rooms you can rent out. And I would dare to say that a lot of people that don't fully understand the industry, they hear co-working, they think that's what it means to be a flex worker. They think that's what your option is. And so I think there's so much, I don't want to undervalue what you guys are saying. I think it's hugely important that people understand that co-working is a one way of working outside of the office, one type of flex work. But there are also spaces that cater to those in the healthcare world. There are those who cater to working parents. There are spaces that cater to community driven by show up, pick a place to work. There are places that cater to executive level suites, and every single place is a fully built out, huge conference room and executive desk, and it is an impressive place to bring your clients, and you choose your own adventure. And that's part of the beauty of it, in my humble opinion, is that we are inherently putting the people first by saying this is an industry that allows you to choose.
It's so market specific too. And I think that doesn't get talked about enough. So when we were opening up in Waco, Texas, the whole town thought it was, just temporary workspace. So I can only be here for the most a year. So it was a huge education awareness project for us that we had to be like, no, we're real office.
That's super interesting.
So, but, Frisco, Texas, hour and a half north, everyone completely understands it. And so it's just different depending on the market.
I think that's so powerful. And that leads me to ask this question: what is broken about the flex industry? Like, what needs fixing? Whether it's a misunderstanding or a business model, or what do you think is broken about this industry that could use a little bit of duct tape?
Transparency. We don't have transparency in our industry in multiple ways, right? There's people out there, very large operators, that are still using the word management deals, but they're not doing management deals. They're doing some type of non-traditional hybrid deal that has some amount of guarantee that the landlord is getting from the operator. There's actual capital put in place. There's actual investment, right? And I come from an interesting place because I'm a real estate broker and I look at it in a different way than other people. And part of the reason people are doing management deals, they're trying to lower their risk. Understandable. But the other side of it, where it's also broken, is our industry from an office overall, let's use the word capital markets driven private equity side, is they're used to 5, 7, and 10-year leases. And so they're going, okay, I'm signing a deal. I know what my cash flow is. And it's funny, Kayla and I got into this last night, and we were breaking down the numbers, and I'm like, in some of these cases, after they pay for build, or they give build out time, they have free rent abatement of some sort, they pay commissions to brokers, and then they have the TI allocated, which in some cases, in some markets, is up to $100, $150 a foot now. They're not getting money until the 5th, 6th, 7th year. So if I'm signing a 10-year deal, they're banking on the last 3 years to really make their money. And so in these management deals, when people are walking in, they want $150 a foot and they want the landlord to cover it. The capital market side has not gotten to the point they can wrap their minds around it. They're deducting that use from the actual rent roll. They're not there yet. And so, I've spoken a couple times at like appraisal associations, and they're like, well, how do we appraise that? And my question is always, have you ever done self-storage? Have you ever done a hotel? Have you ever done an apartment? Those are all short-term leases that you've now managed to change your view on. An apartment, I mean, you're signing 6 to 12 month leases for the most part, and then you're not guaranteeing you're staying. A hotel inventory dies every single night. You're not guaranteed to ever see that same person again. And so it's going, how is the capital markets driven market understood that? But we're not there yet on the office side. And so I think we still have a 5 to 10 year gap to get there, at least in the US. And so it's just really understanding these things. And that's part of my job, is to educate operators on going, hey, this is what your competition is doing. This is how they've messed it up. This is ultimately where we need to get, which is opening locations. And how do we bridge that gap in a way that minimizes your risk while at the same time being an advantage for the landlord and for yourself?
But what's happening a lot too is so landlords aren't trusting the operators, and then they want to do it themselves. So they half build it out. They try to figure it out, and they'll do it for a year or a year and a half, and then they'll contact an operator, and then they'll bring them in. So we've actually taken over a few locations in that exact situation. And, I just wish that this could be ironed out a little bit more.
That was going to be my next question, was about the landlord-owned flex spaces and amenity spaces for that matter. I've seen a rise in these companies that offer amenities as a service. So kind of the sister to workspaces as a service, coming in and just offering to build out the amenity floors for a landlord. because of the problem here, which I do believe sounds like a very big problem, are they going to be more likely to want to hire an amenities as a service company, or are they going to want to do that themselves? Do you think there's a trend there, or is it just every man for himself?
It's going to vary, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to vary across the board. I mean, some people have
The
leads.
customer acquisition in our business is still like every man for himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no real centralized platform. And so while we're technically in a hospitality business, it's on the back end, it's a customer acquisition business, which is very challenging for a landlord to operate on their own. And what I think Switchyards is doing with it, like uniquely to a unique audience, your customer acquisition process looks different than other co-working spaces that are more focused on like office meeting rooms because it's a different end user. Yeah. I think just kind of jumping in on it, and we can go back to, I don't know if this will answer your question most directly, but one of the challenges I think in this business as we're talking about amenities is that we do want to be really consumer focused, really high amenity, really great experience. Food and beverage is a part of that. Like there's so, I think, much in terms of, well, I use like the OFS, like even cafe where we were yesterday, right? It's lovely to walk in and be like, oh my gosh, there are hard-boiled eggs sitting here that are literally perfectly, like the peel falls off, and oh, there's brewed iced tea and it's delightful. And I think that word is a word a lot of operators aspire to, is how do we delight members? But we're kind of talking a lot about member experience and then business model from either the landlord side or signing a lease. And I think we're still really learning how to balance that, because operators who go hard into hospitality, it's expensive to offer all of that. So then you have to have a higher price point. So now you're playing in the segment where you're a premium brand and you have to charge premium prices to offer the service, but everybody wants access to all of that. And so who's doing that? Is it a landlord who is in a better position? They have the space, they can offer amenities that they amortize across the whole building. It's a really hard model for an operator to put the capital into someone else's building to build out a space at $250 a foot. And then also, offer high-end hospitality, which comes with more staff. So I think the consumerization of the workplace is like really what we're talking about. And the consumer loves access to all the things. But how do we create the right business model, and who bears the risk and who puts in the capital? So I think the whole industry is still figuring that out.
Well, it's all dollars and cents, right? It all comes back to the money, right? The same way a landlord, an operator, and everything, and the overall member is going, what is my experience getting me, right? And so that's where we get to basically walk the consumer, right? Whether it be a small consumer or a large one, an enterprise group is going, okay, in order for you to go take down space that has a reception / concierge for you, Wesley, that has a conference room or multiple conference rooms, that has the kitchen, has the hallways, we're going, you're paying a premium for your space, but you're not covering the common area, if you will. You get that hospitality, you get that ability to use the conference room and pay for it as you need. You get the ability to use the kitchen as you need. All those things is part of where people miss that, right? That's what they're paying for. The same way as we're not paying for an entire Airbnb home. We're paying for 100 square foot room in a hotel, right? And so it's a cheaper. That's why Airbnbs are more, is because you're taking the entire four walls of that space. But the other side of it too is people want less liability, both the landlord and the end user, but they want all the benefits of it.
I was going to ask, do you think just the industry doesn't have enough information or like utilization information yet for us to, going back to the operator and the landlord, like what to do or what package to do? Is there just, I don't know, just like not enough information still?
I think to zoom out again. So, I mean, the independent entrepreneur can make whatever choice they want to make, and nobody cares how much time they're spending at the office. The enterprise user is going through a phase where they have existing leases in place, right? So they know people don't want to use the existing lease. The utilization's really low, but that's a fixed cost that they have. So the incremental spend is the optionality right now anyway, while they still have these leases in place. So they're trying to understand, okay, how do we transition from one, fixed corporate office or hubs, what makes sense? And that's why, you were talking about data, like they need the data in order to make decisions. It's not necessarily so much a control factor, but like, well, we have a finite real estate budget. How do we manage this? One thing I want to mention is marketplaces, because marketplaces solve a lot of these problems, which is...
What does that mean?
So a marketplace, an example would be Liquid Space or Dasana or DeskPass. So it is sort of like a Bonvoy site where you go to liquidspace.com. Well, there's two sides of this. Any consumer can go to liquidspace.com and see all of the options of types of possible workspaces, social clubs, meeting places, etc., and figure out what they need. I think the splash screen is, do you need a place to work for an hour or a day or, by the month? And then you sort of filter in. On the back end of that is your company can sign up for a membership and put a budget on it. So now there's less like micromanaging. And the company is saying, okay, do you want to work at a Switchyards? Do you need a place with meeting rooms? Do you need a place to bring a client? Do you need a private office? Go ahead and pick. You have this budget. The employee gets to pick. Exactly. Within the construct of what the company is willing to pay for and what the budget is, which to me makes a ton of sense, because then you're not having to do this on an individual basis, but with a company, but you're saying, okay, if you buy into the marketplace and you give your employees credits, they can just choose based on what they need to do in any given day. So I think we're probably moving in that direction eventually. It's just there's a whole bunch of transitioning that has to happen.
All right. Well, obviously, there have been some really incredible conversations. I think we could keep going for hours, honestly. And I am very humbled by the four of you. I think y'all are some of the very best in the industry. I'm not just saying that. I'm so grateful you're here. I personally feel like I have so much to learn from you guys, and I hope that everybody that listens has a lot to learn from y'all. We will make sure to tag you and give all of your contact information in any information that we put out there so people know how to find you. But thank you guys so much for your insight, your knowledge, your vulnerability, your honesty. It means a lot. So thank you.